Verses 10 to 14. By this law a soldier is allowed to marry his captive if he pleased. For the hardness of their hearts Moses gave them this permission, lest, if they had not had liberty given them to marry such, they should have taken liberty to defile themselves with them, and by such wickedness the camp would have been troubled. The man is supposed to have a wife already, and to take this wife for a secondary wife, as the Jews called them. This indulgence of men's inordinate desires, in which their hearts walked after their eyes, is by no means agreeable to the law of Christ, which therefore in this respect, among others, far exceeds in glory the law of Moses. The gospel permits not him that has one wife to take another, for from the beginning it was not so. The gospel forbids looking upon a woman, though a beautiful one, to lust after her, and commands the mortifying and denying of all irregular desires, though it be as uneasy as the cutting off of a right hand. So much does our holy religion, more than that of the Jews, advance the honor and support the dominion of the soul over the body, the spirit over the flesh, consonant to the glorious discovery it makes of life and immortality, and the better hope. But, though military men were allowed this liberty, yet care is here taken that they should not abuse it, that is, that they should not abuse themselves by doing it too hastily, though the captive was ever so desirable. If thou wouldest have her to thy wife, v. 10:11, it is true thou needest not ask her parents' consent, for she is thy captive, and is at thy disposal. Thou shalt have no familiar intercourse till thou hast married her. This allowance was designed to gratify, not a filthy brutish lust, in the heat and fury of its rebellion against reason and virtue, but an honorable and generous affection to a comely and amiable person, though in distress. Therefore he may make her his wife if he will, but he must not deal with her as with a harlot. Thou shalt not marry her of a sudden, but keep her a full month in thy house, v. 12:13. This he must do either that he may try to take his affection off from her, for he must know that, though in marrying her he does not do ill, so the law then stood, yet in letting her alone he does much better. Let her therefore shave her head, that he might not be enamored with her locks, and let her nails grow, so the margin reads it, to spoil the beauty of her hand. Quis quid amas cupias non plaquis nimis. We should moderate our affection for those things which we are tempted to love inordinately. Or rather, this was done in token of her renouncing idolatry, and becoming a proselyte to the Jewish religion. The shaving of her head, the paring of her nails, and the changing of her apparel, signified her putting off her former conversation, which was corrupt in her ignorance, that she might become a new creature. She must remain in his house to be taught the good knowledge of the Lord and the worship of him, and the Jews say that if she refused, and continued obstinate in idolatry, he must not marry her. Note, the professors of religion must not be unequally yoked with unbelievers, 2 Cor 6:14. That they should not abuse the poor captive. She must have time to bewail her father and mother, from whom she was separated, and without whose consent and blessing she is now likely to be married, and perhaps to a common soldier of Israel, though in her country ever so nobly born and bred. To force a marriage till these sorrows were digested, and in some measure got over, and she was better reconciled to the land of her captivity by being better acquainted with it, would be very unkind. She must not bewail her idols, but be glad to part with them. To her near and dear relations only her affection must be thus indulged. Rk if, upon second thoughts, he that had brought her to his house with a purpose to marry her changed his mind and would not marry her, he might not make merchandise of her, as of his other prisoners, but must give her liberty to return, if she pleased, to her own country, because he had humbled her and afflicted her, by raising expectations and then disappointing them, v. 14, having made a fool of her, he might not make a prey of her. This intimates how binding the laws of justice and honor are, particularly in the pretensions of love, the courting of affections, and the promises of marriage, which are to be looked upon as solemn things, that have something sacred in them, and therefore are not to be jested with.